So looking at the study questions, or review questions for reading 23, which is the first half of Kant's What is Enlightenment? Tremendously important work, I think, politically. It lays out an idea that's just so central to our conception of what modern society should be. But number one, how does Kant define enlightenment? We can, let's take a look. Enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed immaturity. And then he says immaturity is the inability to use one's understanding without guidance from another. So our maturity and enlightenment would be the ability to use our understanding without guidance from anyone else. That's what it means to be enlightened. A very interesting, puzzling conception of what enlightenment is. It's not knowing anything in particular. It's not having some grasp of some great truth or reality. It's the ability to use your reason, to use your understanding without guidance for another. The capacity to think for yourself. Pretty amazing. Number two, why does Kant believe that it is easier for the public as a whole to become enlightened than individuals? Well, this is where the thing cannot be separated from politics. As he says here in section 4, bottom of the first page, but that the public should enlighten itself is more likely. Indeed, if it is only allowed freedom, enlightenment is almost inevitable. The idea is that if we have freedom of speech, if we have the free exchange of ideas, then the public as a whole, we as a society, influencing each other and exchanging ideas in a free and open way, will reach enlightenment much more quickly than an individual sort of struggling on their own. But this is the central point, I think, of the whole essay, is that you absolutely need to have freedom of speech for a society to move forward towards enlightenment, because you have to have the free exchange of ideas, which is an incredibly important idea of why free speech is such an important thing. Looking at the, reading 24 review questions, the second half of Kant's What is Enlightenment. Number one, in specific, what does Kant think is necessary for the public to become enlightened? The free use of public reason, or the free public use of reason, which basically means free speech. That when we are, well, as you said, he means free speech. But then we go right to the second question, explain Kant's distinction between the private and public uses of reason. Private use of reason would be when you are using your reason in the service of some community, some limited community or institution or role. For instance, let's say that you are a priest in the Catholic Church. When you are addressing your congregation, you are the representative of the Catholic Church, and so you have to pretty much stick within the accepted ideas, dogmas, and traditions of the institution you represent. That would be a private use of reason. The public use of reason would be if you go home and you decide you're going to write a letter to the editor about some issue in which you're expressing your own opinion. Then it's the public use of reason. It's public because you're addressing the public, as he says, as a scholar. So that's what needs to be free. Whenever we're in the domain of public discourse, when we're in our private roles, I don't know, my role right now as your teacher, I'm not sure where that really fits. I can say whatever I want, but say that I was like a administrator of temple. They can't say whatever they want. They can't ever say what they want, really. But I'm more or less, my job is to speak freely with you. So I would say that this is the public use of reason, what we're doing in our course. Kant may not agree then. Number three, do you agree with Kant that the private use of reason may be restricted? Why or why not? Well, I mean, what he's saying is that for the purposes of maintaining the institutions of society, it has to be restricted. That is, a Catholic priest can't say whatever they want to the congregation. A government official can't even say whatever they want. A military official, the representative of a large corporation can't. Do you agree that it's okay to limit the freedom of speech of people who occupy those roles? Number 4, do you agree with Kant that the public use of reason should not be restricted, that we should be able to say whatever we want without fear of any kind of sanction or punishment in the public domain, to express any opinion whatsoever on the internet, in a newspaper? We should never be restricted. Do you agree with him on that? I mean, it's not so obvious. Number 5, what is the crime against, I should say crime against human nature, which Kant mentions on page 2. He's saying if say that we got together now and we said, we figured it out in terms of religion, or we figured it out in terms of science, or we figured it out in terms of politics, and this is what we believe and will never change, and this is what our society will always believe, that would be a crime against human nature. Because he says it is our destiny to make progress towards enlightenment. So scientifically, philosophically, morally, politically, we can't bind a future age to our opinions, no matter how much confidence you may have in them. That would be a crime against our destiny as human beings, as a human society, which is to become more and more enlightened, to discover new things, to discover new truths, and to change, and hopefully make progress. Number 6, what distinction does Kant make between an enlightened age and an age of enlightenment? I think what he means by that, an enlightened age is impossible, more or less, because it would be a finished product. An age of enlightenment would be very possible because it would be going towards enlightenment rather than having achieved it. That's a big distinction. And then number 7, do you personally believe that we currently live in an age of enlightenment? I mean, the way that you would need to answer that would not be to say that we've achieved enlightenment completely, but do you think we're heading towards it? That's what he really means by an age of enlightenment.